Dude, that is wrong, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
Congress rewrites UFO history and makes some. An audio article by Nick Madrid. Congress has learned a lot more from the classified report than they're willing to divulge, at least for now. However, the history books are being rewritten, and the Pentagon will likely take the fall for decades of obfuscation. Congress now faces the inescapable conclusion that elements within the Pentagon's intelligence apparatus have prevented congressional oversight on unidentified aerial phenomenon and are likely in contempt of Congress. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force classified report provided a revelation that Earth is being visited by entities of unknown origin, possessing vastly superior technology, and have yet to communicate in a manner humanity can comprehend. The Gillibrand UAP language, now ratified in the National Defense Authorization Act, was the result of Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force classified documentation which reportedly included high-resolution videos viewed by U.S. intelligence committees. These videos contain evidence of UAP defying gravity and physics as we currently understand them. This realization was enough to force Congress to question its ability to gather reliable intelligence associated with unidentified aerial phenomena. However, as Congress moved forward with the groundbreaking legislation passed in the National Defense Authorization Act, the Pentagon moved to stifle its progress. The Department of Defense's established the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group on the day before Thanksgiving last year, as the successor to the United States Navy's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. Many in Congress felt that the new Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group intended to undermine oversight of a critical national security concern regarding UAP. However, the recently released government-wide spending package Congress doubled down and now wants to require quarterly classified reports on UAP, instead of one annual report, and states, the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense shall jointly require that each element of the intelligence community, and component of the Department of Defense with data relating to unidentified aerial phenomena, shall submit to the appropriate congressional committees a report on the findings of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, or successor entity. Not later than 90 days after the date of the enactment of this act, and not less frequently than quarterly thereafter, the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force or successor entity, consistent with the protection of intelligence sources and methods, shall submit to the appropriate congressional committees a report on the findings of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, or successor entity. Inquiring as to the exact dates when the quarterly classified reports would start being funneled to the intelligence committees in Congress, I posed the question to political analyst Dean Johnson, who recently wrote an article entitled Congress Tells Pentagon and Intelligence Community, UFOs Are Serious Business. And he said, the bill has received final congressional approval, but it has not yet been signed into law. Presuming it is signed on March 15, 2022, the first classified report to the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees would be due on or about June 13, 2022. However, under Public Law 117-81, the law enacted in December 2021, there is also a classified briefing required by about March 28, 2022, for Intelligence and Appropriations Committees. End quote. Post-article note, President Biden signed the 2022 Omnibus Bill spending package on March 15, 2022, which now provides funding for quarterly UAP classified reports and a new congressional office, yet to be named, which will be dedicated to the intelligence gathering on UAP. Undoubtedly, congressional motivation to control the narrative on the now unavoidable realization reached from the UAP classified report is evident in its obvious urgency. Lawmakers have now covered more ground on unidentified aerial phenomena in the last 9 months than in the last 75 years, which is both historic and somewhat unsettling. UFO history rewritten. Congressional lawmakers, having seen high-resolution videos of UAP, which influence the language now ratified in the National Defense Authorization Act, force them to draw some inescapable conclusions even if it's not on the official record, yet. The widely covered addition to the National Defense Authorization Act, which includes inquiries into nuclear weapon site incursions and biological effects suffered by military and aerospace personnel within close proximity to UAP, is just the tip of the iceberg. Congress now comprehends that a very real, and vastly superior technology currently not possessed by any earthly government exists. Lawmakers now understand that if this technology fell into the hands of American adversaries, it would create an indefensible first strike capability. The legislation within the National Defense Authorization Act also infers this deduction, as the language seeks to acquire an update on any efforts to capture or exploit discovered unidentified aerial phenomena. With that being said, they understand that something is controlling these vehicles, that they likely know nothing about, and have no way to gauge the threat to national security. Lawmakers are also aware that unidentified aerial phenomenon observed by U.S. naval pilots today shares the same vehicle configurations and gravity-defying performance as witnessed by the U.S. military more than 65 years ago. This means they know the Air Force's conclusions regarding Project Blue Book in 1969 were erroneous fabrications to hide the truth from the American public and Congress, which will eventually require an explanation. The approaching revelation, the influx of quarterly UAP intelligence, could lead to leaking from Congress itself. The United States government has to maintain control of the narrative and flow of information to preserve congressional integrity, mitigate its liability, and most importantly, provide leadership for what will inevitably be a sociological altering revelation. The question becomes, what will it take to open the door and inform society of the truth we now face? Congress's breaking point lies somewhere between the retribution the American public will inflict on lawmakers for withholding information on UAP, and their fear that academics and scientists are not fully engaged to understand this phenomenon and its technology before democracy's adversaries. From a military perspective, the United States and its allies must obtain this technology first. It would be in the best interest of all democracies concerned to have its best scientists and academics working around the clock to solve the technological mystery. Notables have discussed the compartmentalized process associated with the hypothetical UFO program, which has likely hindered their ability to solve or reverse engineer the problems associated with alien technology. Based on recent developments in the world today, if the Russians were to obtain this technology tomorrow, we'd likely all be speaking Russian by this time next year, possibly sooner. In this regard, overclassification does more damage to national security as a result of concealing information between intelligence agencies, qualified scientists, and academics. Congress faces the real possibility that potential whistleblowers and leakers who have classified documentation and credible video evidence of UAP may be losing faith in their government's institutions' ability to provide transparency to the American public. A simple formula indicates whistleblowing or responsible leaking is exactly as ethical as the practices it exposes are unethical or illegal. With that being said, there is far more at stake than the integrity, financial well-being, or illegal activities of a company or a government. Irresponsible leaking could inadvertently shift the tide in technological advancement to an adversarial government. The reality is, the sooner academics and scientists are provided with the necessary data, their expertise can be engaged to help solidify democracy's future. Quite literally speaking, democracy's survival may depend on our ability to put the stigma of UAP behind us and work together to find the answers. Originally published on Medium, and can also be found on themadridpapers.com. Please like and subscribe and visit us at themadridpapers.com, and thanks for listening.